The Dream Weaver, a story of Martin Luther King, Jr. Childhood, the first stings of injustice. The Georgia sun beat down, relentless and warm, on the porch of the King family home at 501 Auburn Avenue. Young Martin, born Michael King, Jr., was a boy filled with boundless curiosity and a quiet strength that belied his age. He would often sit and watch dust motes dance in the golden afternoon light, captivated by the rhythm of life around him. From inside the Ebenezer Baptist Church, just steps away, the deep, steady voice of his father, Michael King Sr., who would later change both their names to Martin Luther King, echoed. Daddy King, a preacher like his father before him, commanded attention with words that seemed to hold the power of the divine, shaping young Martin's understanding of faith and justice. Martin absorbed it all. The soul-stirring hymns that lifted spirits, the thunderous sermons that carried both hope and warning, and the palpable sense of unity that filled their modest, vibrant home. His family, deeply rooted in the church and community, provided a sanctuary of love and learning. Yet, beyond those walls, the world was less forgiving, less kind, and starkly divided. Martin was barely 6 when he first felt the cruel bite of segregation, told he could no longer play with his white friend, the son of a local grocer, because of the color of his skin. The rejection was invisible but deeply felt, like a shadow cast upon his young, innocent heart. He remembered other moments, too, that etched themselves into his memory. A trip to a downtown shoe store where he and his father were forced to move to the back, while white customers were served up front. His father's quiet dignity, his refusal to accept such humiliation without protest, resonated deeply within Martin. Then there was the train journey north, where the conductor ordered his family to move from the comfortable, integrated dining car to the cramped, segregated, colored car. The shame, the confusion, and the quiet sorrow on his mother's face as she complied. Those feelings lingered in Martin's memory long after the journey ended, a constant reminder of the pervasive injustice that contradicted everything he was taught about equality and God's love. Formation, A Mind Awakens. Despite the world's harshness, Martin's home was a sanctuary of love, learning, and unwavering principle. His mother, Alberta Williams King, a gentle schoolteacher with a passion for music and poetry, filled their house with spirituals and the verses of Langston Hughes, nurturing Martin's imagination and instilling in him an unshakable sense of worth that the outside world often tried to deny. His father, a formidable and respected leader in the black community, taught him a different kind of strength, not just of the body but of the soul. Lessons of justice, of standing tall even when the world demanded he bow, shaped Martin into a young man of profound resolve and moral principle. Academically gifted and intellectually restless, Martin skipped grades, entering Morehouse College at just 15. He devoured books, his mind constantly questioning the injustices he observed. At times, he wrestled with profound doubts about the justice of a God who allowed such widespread cruelty and suffering. Yet, through rigorous study, deep reflection, and countless conversations with mentors like Dr. Benjamin Mays, the president of Morehouse, his faith deepened. It transformed from an inherited belief into a deeply personal conviction, becoming a guiding beacon in his increasingly complex world. He wrestled with the problem of evil and suffering, but ultimately concluded that the path to justice lay in understanding and applying the principles of Christian love. By his teenage years, Martin had committed himself to the ministry, not out of mere family expectation, but from a profound conviction that the pulpit could be a powerful place for social transformation. He believed that words, imbued with moral purpose, had the power to change hearts, minds, and ultimately, the world. At Morehouse, his understanding of segregation evolved beyond a mere social custom. He saw it as a deep spiritual ailment, a sickness that distorted both the oppressed and the oppressor alike. He began to explore how theology could be a tool for social change, laying the groundwork for his future leadership. Discovery, Seeds of Nonviolence and a Revolutionary Love. Years later, in Boston, pursuing his doctorate at Boston University's School of Theology, Martin encountered a world strikingly different from the rigidly segregated South. The unfamiliar streets, the crisp New England air, and the surprising interactions where white strangers held doors open for him and spoke with courtesy. It was no paradise, but it was a refreshing breath of fresh air. This new environment sparked a cautious sense of hope, revealing a glimpse of what racial harmony could potentially look like. He immersed himself in philosophy, devouring the works of ancient Greek thinkers like Plato and modern philosophers like Kant, Hegel, and Nietzsche. It was here, in the academic quiet of Boston, that Martin discovered the writings of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's philosophy of satyagraha, truth force or soul force, a nonviolent resistance that had toppled the British Empire in India without bloodshed, lit a profound fire within him. Nonviolence, Martin realized, was not weakness or passivity, but a powerful active force harnessed by rigorous discipline, unwavering courage, and an all-encompassing love. It was a moral weapon far more potent than any physical one. In Boston, he also met Coretta Scott, a talented singer and aspiring activist from Alabama. Coretta possessed a quiet intensity and a deep commitment to social justice that perfectly complemented his own burgeoning aspirations. Their connection was immediate and profound. Their love was more than romantic. It was a partnership forged in shared purpose, intellectual passion, and a mutual dedication to a better world. She challenged him, supported him, and saw him not just as a rising preacher, but as a man with a monumental mission. They married in 1953. Martin earned his doctorate in 1955, and together they envisioned a modest, fulfilling life. Martin as a pastor of a progressive church, perhaps a teacher, and a devoted father. But history, with its relentless currents, had other, far grander plans for them. Montgomery. The spark ignites a movement. Their lives and the course of American history irrevocably changed in Montgomery, Alabama. On December 1st, 1955, a seamstress named Rosa Parks, tired after a long day of work, refused to surrender her seat on a public bus to a white passenger. Quietly, yet with profound dignity, she said, "No," and that simple act of defiance, seemingly small, sent a ripple through the exhausted patience of a community. That ripple quickly became a roar. The city's black community, galvanized by generations of systemic injustice, decided they would no longer tolerate segregation on public transport. They organized a boycott of the buses, refusing to ride until the discriminatory practices ended. They desperately needed a leader, someone young, educated, principled, and articulate enough to unite and guide them. At just 26 years old, the newly arrived pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Martin Luther King, Jr., was asked to step forward and lead the Montgomery Improvement Association. He hesitated, feeling the crushing weight of the moment, the immense responsibility, and his own youth. He spent a sleepless night in prayer, wrestling with doubt and fear. But by morning, a profound sense of clarity and conviction settled over him. He accepted the call. That very evening, at the packed Holt Street Baptist Church, Martin gave his first speech as the movement's chosen leader. The congregation overflowed, spilling out into the streets, the air thick with anticipation, fear, and desperate hope. His voice, forged in the fire of Scripture and sharpened by reason, rang out with unwavering conviction, stirring the souls of those gathered. "We are not wrong," he declared. "If we are wrong, the Supreme Court is wrong. If we are wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we are wrong, God Almighty is wrong." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, a collective catharsis. A new, powerful movement had truly been born. The boycott and beyond, forging nonviolent resolve. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted an arduous 381 days. For over a year, thousands of people, housewives, laborers, students, and elders, walked miles to work and school, carpooled in makeshift systems, endured relentless threats, lost jobs, and faced constant harassment and violence. It was a testament to their collective endurance and unwavering resolve. Martin Luther King Jr. stood at the forefront, enduring immense personal attacks. His home was bombed while Coretta and their infant daughter Yolanda slept inside, miraculously unharmed. That chilling night, a furious and desperate crowd, armed and ready for retribution, gathered outside his damaged home. Martin stepped forward calmly, his voice steady amidst the chaos. "We must meet hate with love," he implored. "If I am stopped, this movement will not stop. God is with us." His words, imbued with the spirit of nonviolence, even in the face of extreme provocation, diffused the tension and set a powerful precedent for the entire movement. This moment, more than any other, marked the true beginning of his transformation into a global symbol of peaceful resistance. Victory eventually came. On November 13, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court declared bus segregation unconstitutional. The buses of Montgomery were desegregated on December 21, 1956. It was a monumental triumph, but Martin knew it was only the beginning of a much larger, nationwide struggle. Leadership and letters, the moral compass. From that moment, Martin became the undeniable face and moral compass of the burgeoning civil rights movement. He helped found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, in 1957, a powerful organization dedicated to orchestrating nonviolent direct action protests across the segregated South. He traveled tirelessly, speaking, organizing, and inspiring, his message resonating deeply with those who yearned for freedom. His leadership was put to its ultimate test in Birmingham, Alabama, in 1963, a city notorious for its extreme segregation and violent police chief, Bull Connor. There, peaceful protesters, including young children, marched against injustice, only to be met with snarling police dogs and high-pressure fire hoses. The shocking images, broadcast globally, seared themselves into the consciousness of a horrified world. King was arrested repeatedly during these campaigns, often enduring solitary confinement and harsh conditions. From one of those bleak jail cells in Birmingham, he penned his famed Letter from Birmingham Jail, not to his enemies, but to white clergymen who had criticized his methods as too extreme and untimely. It was a philosophical masterpiece, a passionate and meticulously reasoned defense of civil disobedience, democracy, and the urgency of the fight for racial equality. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," he declared, a timeless truth that became a rallying cry for activists worldwide. His words became a moral compass for a new generation, articulating the ethical imperative of fighting for justice. The cost was extraordinarily high. Martin lived with constant death threats, knowing every speech could be his last. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, relentlessly harassed him, attempting to undermine his reputation and derail the movement. Critics grew louder. Some within the black community said he was too passive, too slow, while others accused him of being too radical. Yet, through it all, fueled by his unwavering faith and the unwavering spirit of the people, he pressed on. He marched in Selma, Alabama, in 1965, facing down state troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, witnessing and experiencing the brutal, Bloody Sunday that shocked the nation into passing voting rights legislation. He spoke at countless rallies, always articulating a vision of a redeemed America. I have a dream. A nation's conscience awakens. Then came the crescendo. August 28th, 1963. Washington, D.C. Over 250,000 people, black and white, young and old, from every corner of the nation, gathered peacefully for the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. The air crackled with anticipation, a profound mix of hope, exhaustion, and the weight of history. Martin stood before the towering Lincoln Memorial, notes clutched in his hand, ready to deliver his carefully prepared speech. It was powerful, eloquent, and logically structured. But then, as he reached its conclusion, something shifted. The legendary gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, who had just performed, cried out from behind him, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." King looked up. He set his prepared notes aside, and from deep within his soul, he began to speak from the heart, channeling the collective yearning and suffering of generations. "I have a dream." His voice, resonant and soaring, carried that vision across the National Mall, painting a vivid, almost tangible picture of a country redeemed. A dream where the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners could sit down together at the table of brotherhood. A dream where children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. A dream rooted deeply in the American promise of liberty and justice for all. That day, he didn't just speak to 250,000 people. He etched himself into the soul of a nation and amplified the conscience of the world. Struggle and shift, new frontiers. The dream stirred a nation to action. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, outlawing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, dismantling discriminatory voting practices. Laws were passed, legal barriers fell, progress was undeniable, yet hatred, deeply embedded, did not vanish. Systemic inequality persisted. King, ever evolving, turned his gaze to a broader battle: poverty, economic inequality, and the burgeoning Vietnam War. He recognized that freedom without economic opportunity was hollow. He launched the Poor People's Campaign, advocating for affordable housing, fair wages, and dignity for all workers, regardless of race. Then came his outspoken opposition to the Vietnam War. He believed the war diverted crucial resources from domestic poverty programs and contradicted the very principles of nonviolence he championed. His vocal stance cost him allies, alienating some within the movement and many in the political establishment. He was no longer merely a dreamer, but increasingly seen as a radical, a traitor, even a communist by his detractors. His movement fractured under the strain of internal disagreements and external pressures. Still unwavering in his moral conviction, he marched on. The final days, the Mountaintop. In 1968, King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee, to support striking sanitation workers, predominantly black men who faced appalling working conditions and meager pay, fighting for basic human dignity. He understood their struggle for economic justice was an extension of the fight for civil rights. Tired, burdened by threats, but unbroken in spirit, he delivered his final prophetic speech on the evening of April 3rd, 1968, at Mason Temple. "I've been to the mountaintop," he said, his voice weary but resolute. "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." It was a chillingly prescient address, full of both hope and a premonition of his own mortality. The very next day, on the 4th of April, 1968, as he stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, talking with aides, a single rifle shot rang out. The voice that had inspired millions, that had dared a nation to dream, fell tragically silent. The legacy, dreams that rise. Martin Luther King Jr. was not perfect. He was not a saint untouched by human frailties or doubts. He was a man, brilliant, brave, flawed, and profoundly faithful. He grappled with immense personal and public pressures, carried the hopes of a dispossessed people on his shoulders, and reshaped a nation through the sheer force of his love, his unwavering commitment to nonviolence, and the compelling clarity of his vision. He dreamed not just for black children, but for all of humanity, for a world where every individual could fulfill their potential, free from the shackles of prejudice and poverty. He dreamed of a world where justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Though the dreamer was silenced by an assassin's bullet, the dream itself endured. Because dreams, when shared, become movements, and movements, when just and rooted in the eternal truths of human dignity, never truly die. They rise,